I grew up playing the basketball with the boys, so like it's always been physical and feisty, and like that's what it is. And you got to find a way to hold your own.
Is Caitlin Clark is going to be traded soon? And if you follow the rabbit hole, it all sounds real. It all sounds on purpose, and it all makes sense. Caitlin Clark to LA Sparks.
Caitlin Clark. Just 2 minutes ago, the unimaginable unfolded. Fans were left stunned. Teammates stood frozen in disbelief. The sudden disappearance of the WNBA's biggest star sent shockwaves through the basketball world, and almost instantly, the silence was filled with speculation. Was there a heated confrontation behind closed doors with league officials? Was there a serious injury that had been kept hidden from the public? Or was there a controversy so explosive that no one was willing to speak about it? Sophie Cunningham struggled to hold back emotion. Lexie Hull's eyes filled with tears. Cameras captured expressions that words could never fully explain. The atmosphere inside the arena suddenly felt heavier, colder, almost unreal. What could possibly make Caitlin Clark step away at the height of her rise? Whatever the truth is, the answer has the potential to shake everything people thought they knew. At the center of this growing mystery stands Caitlin Clark, the rookie sensation who transformed the WNBA almost overnight. Only days earlier, she wasn't just leading her team in points and assists. She was dominating headlines, captivating millions of viewers, and becoming the face of an entirely new era for women's basketball. She wasn't dealing with a known injury. She wasn't missing practices. She wasn't showing signs of slowing down. She was the spark that packed arenas, boosted television ratings, and introduced an entirely new generation of fans to the league. Then, without warning, she was simply gone. No announcement. No clear explanation. Only silence. The confusion spread like wildfire. Within minutes, theories flooded social media. Some whispered the familiar phrase load management, suggesting routine rest or a minor physical issue. Others hinted at disciplinary action taking place behind the scenes. But none of it seemed to fit. Clark hadn't violated league rules. She hadn't created public drama. She hadn't disrespected teammates or coaches. By nearly every visible measure, she was excelling both on and off the court. That's why her disappearance didn't feel like an ordinary coaching decision. It felt like someone had erased the brightest star from the stage. Those watching closely sensed there had to be something much bigger happening beneath the surface. Then the whispers from behind closed doors began to grow louder. According to people familiar with internal conversations, tension had reportedly been building between Clark and certain league officials. Her rapid rise wasn't only changing the game on the court, it was changing the conversation around the league itself. Every post-game interview became national news. Every honest answer spread across social media within minutes. Her confidence, directness, and willingness to speak openly attracted millions of supporters. But according to growing speculation, not everyone in positions of power appreciated someone who refused to quietly blend into the background. One rumor, in particular, fueled even more debate. Clark was reportedly involved in a private discussion where she questioned the league's marketing strategy, arguing that it wasn't connecting with the fans she believed had helped fuel the WNBA's recent surge in popularity. She allegedly spoke honestly. She didn't soften her words. She didn't simply agree to avoid conflict. According to those rumored to have knowledge of the meeting, the conversation became tense because Clark refused to back away from what she believed. Then something strange appeared to happen. Within 48 hours, her court time reportedly began to shrink. Within 72 hours, she was completely out of the rotation. And what followed raised even more questions. There were no interviews, no official press conference, no detailed explanation. One of the brightest stars in professional basketball had seemingly vanished overnight, as if someone had flipped a switch. But her fans refused to let the story disappear. Within hours, hashtags supporting Caitlin Clark exploded across social media. Comment sections filled with frustration. TikTok, Instagram, and X became flooded with demands for transparency. Supporters wanted answers. Thousands questioned why no one was speaking. Even voices from around the basketball world began adding fuel to the conversation. Critics questioned the league's handling of its biggest attraction, while unanswered questions only caused speculation to spread even faster. With every passing hour, suspicion continued to grow. The silence itself became the story. And the longer it lasted, the greater the pressure became on a league already struggling to control the public narrative. For perhaps the first time, the WNBA wasn't simply facing criticism. It was facing millions of fans who refused to look away. And one question still refused to disappear. If silence continues to create more doubt than clarity, how long can the league withstand the growing pressure? Then everything shifted once again. Sophie Cunningham stepped into the spotlight. The silence surrounding Caitlin Clark had become almost unbearable. Then Sophie spoke. And suddenly everything changed. While reporters searched desperately for information and fans overwhelmed league officials with questions, the WNBA remained publicly silent. Sophie Cunningham chose a different path. She didn't avoid the subject. She didn't rely on carefully rehearsed answers. She addressed the controversy head-on. What was expected to be another routine post-game interview instantly became one of the most talked-about moments in basketball. Instead of offering polite cliches or predictable media responses, Sophie delivered a statement that spread across the sports world in record time. You don't ignore your biggest star unless you're afraid of her influence. The room fell silent. Reporters looked at one another in disbelief before leaning forward, realizing they had just witnessed something extraordinary. Before league officials could even prepare a response, the clip was already spreading across social media. Within hours, it was everywhere. Podcasts, Instagram Reels, TikTok videos, sports shows, highlight channels. Fans replayed the moment again and again, treating it less like a soundbite and more like a rallying cry. But Sophie Cunningham wasn't finished. What initially appeared to be a single emotional comment was only the beginning. What first looked like a spontaneous emotional outburst quickly transformed into something far more powerful, an unrelenting campaign. Sophie Cunningham refused to let the story fade. She even took the conversation to her podcast, where she suggested there was something far more troubling behind Clark's disappearance. According to Sophie, Caitlin Clark's benching had nothing to do with basketball and everything to do with politics. She argued that the league had become more concerned with maintaining control than embracing progress, more focused on protecting authority than celebrating the very talent that had helped elevate the WNBA to unprecedented attention. She went further than almost any active player would dare. Sophie spoke publicly about what countless others were only willing to whisper behind closed doors. According to her, Clark's treatment wasn't just about one player, it was a warning. A message sent to every athlete about what could happen when someone speaks too openly, challenges the status quo, or shines a little too brightly. Her words sliced through the silence. And she didn't stop after one interview. She repeated her concerns during live appearances, media sessions, and team conversations, refusing to soften her position. Sophie made it clear that losing playing time or facing possible fines wasn't what frightened her. What truly terrified her was the possibility of watching one of the most influential players of this generation quietly disappear while everyone else remained silent. Fans responded immediately. Her courage spread across social media like wildfire. Hashtags that had once reflected frustration suddenly became calls to action. Hashtag Stand with Sophie and hashtag Free Clark began trending side by side as thousands of supporters united behind both players. What had started as one player's opinion rapidly evolved into a movement the league could no longer ignore. Supporters weren't just rallying behind Caitlin Clark anymore. They were celebrating Sophie Cunningham for risking her own reputation to speak out against what many believed was deeply unfair. The WNBA never appeared prepared for a reaction of this magnitude. The spark had become a wildfire. And suddenly, this was no longer only about one player's disappearance. Questions were now being raised about the credibility and integrity of the entire league. The WNBA seemed determined to keep certain doors closed. But Sophie Cunningham had already pushed one wide open. And behind it were questions that, if ever answered, could reshape the future of the game itself. What began with Caitlin Clark's absence had grown into a story about the league's ability to maintain the trust of its own fans. But another mystery was about to emerge. What truth was hidden behind Lexie Hull's silence? Keep watching, because Lexie Hull was about to break it. Sophie Cunningham had already shaken the league. Then, just one day later, the storm intensified. Lexie Hull entered the conversation with a completely different kind of power. She didn't release a carefully crafted statement. She didn't sit down for a lengthy podcast. She didn't rely on rehearsed talking points. Instead, after practice, she walked directly into the media room, looked straight into the cameras, and delivered a single sentence that carried more weight than an entire speech. If they can treat Caitlin Clark this way, what do you think they'll do to the rest of us? The room instantly fell silent. No dramatic delivery. No polished public relations language. Just a raw question that seemed to stop everyone in their tracks. Reporters lowered their notebooks. Players standing nearby exchanged uneasy glances. Within minutes, the clip exploded across social media, reaching far beyond WNBA audiences. This was no longer just a women's basketball story. The entire sports world was paying attention. ESPN personalities discussed it. YouTube creators debated it. Sports commentators across multiple platforms asked the very same question. What was really happening behind closed doors inside the WNBA? But Lexie Hull wasn't finished. Only hours later, she shared a striking black and white photograph featuring herself alongside Caitlin Clark. The caption contained just one word: loyalty. That single word ignited another wave of speculation. Was she calling out betrayal inside the locker room? Was the message directed toward management? Or was it meant as encouragement for teammates who felt pressured to remain silent? No one knew, but the timing made the post impossible to ignore. And the mystery only deepened. Soon afterward, reports and rumors began circulating behind the scenes. According to individuals claiming knowledge of internal discussions, Lexie had reportedly become one of the most outspoken voices within the team since the controversy began. One account suggested she directly questioned members of the coaching staff, asking why the player who consistently filled arenas and attracted millions of viewers had suddenly disappeared from the rotation. Another claimed teammates quietly supported her concerns. What had started as whispers about tension inside the locker room quickly evolved into headlines suggesting that unity had been replaced by uncertainty. And according to growing speculation, it wasn't limited to one team. Lexie reportedly hinted that players across several organizations had privately discussed their frustration with the handling of the Clark situation, even if few were willing to do so publicly. The pressure to stay quiet was real, but so was the growing determination to finally speak. Rumors even suggested Lexie had begun connecting with younger players who were exhausted by what they viewed as outdated politics and expectations that athletes should simply play, smile, and never question authority. Then came the social media posts. Short, emotional, impossible to ignore. One message, later deleted, sent shockwaves through fan communities. If you want to leave a legacy, stop silencing the people who built it. Screenshots spread almost instantly. Within hours, the post appeared across Reddit threads, TikTok edits, fan pages, and discussion forums. Some believed the message was aimed directly at league executives. Others argued it targeted media personalities accused of minimizing the controversy. No matter the interpretation, nearly everyone agreed on one point. Lexie Hull was no longer simply reacting. She was challenging the culture of silence itself. Now Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull stood together on the front line. Two players seemingly willing to risk everything by speaking about issues others refused to address.